Okay, so today's daf is daf tes in Nazir as we begin the second parak. Says the Mishnah, we know that a Nazir is a person who's forbidden to drink wine. In addition, he can't be tamei l'meis and he can't cut his hair. However, a Nazir is only with regard to wine and grape products, not regard to figs or dates or anything like that. So let's say he says, I'm a Nazir from eating grogus, dried figs, pressed figs. I don't want to eat those figs. So is that a Nazir? Shammai says he's a Nazir. Now, how could that be a Nazir? When you are a Nazir, that means you can't drink grape. You can't eat grape products. What does that mean that he's a Nazir from grogus and What does that mean? So we'll see the Gemara. Shammai holds, you look at the first one. He says, I already know I'm a Nazir. I'm a Nazir. Nazir means that's it. You can't drink wine. Oh, then he says, I mean to say from grogus and from figs. You know what? You're changing your mind, and you can't change your mind when it comes to a Nazir. Ain't Shayla ben Nazir, says the Gemara will explain. Pshat and Beishamai. Beisil says no, ain't a Nazir. That's not a Nazir because you look not only at the first thing he said already Nazir, you look at the last thing he said. That Beisil will see goes either like Rabbi Yossi holds that Afbek Varav Adam Nitfas. A person is held to his last words too, not just his first words. Famous machlokes when a person says Hareza Ola, Hareza Tzmuras Ola Ushlomin. Can't be an Ola if it's a Shlom, can't be a Shlom if it's an Ola. The answer is he means it's both. He means to say both, but he can't say it both at the same time. So you look at both his first words and his last words. And Bell says obviously he only wants to be a Nazir from grogus and veil. It doesn't make any sense. There's no such thing as a Nazir, no such animal, so to speak. Therefore, Beisil says it's nothing. He's exempt totally. According to Beishamai, he's still a Nazir. So Beisil ain't a Nazir. Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says another pshat in Beishamai. After Beishamai, when Beishamai says that he's forbidden to eat, he doesn't mean he's a Nazir. He says that when they ask him, what do you mean you say you're a Nazir? A Nazir is with grapes. What are you talking about figs? He says, I meant to say that the figs are usher to me, just like grapes are usher to a Nazir. He really just meant to make not a Nazir, but a neder, just a regular neder. So that's what Rav Yehuda says. Rav Yehuda says, Besham doesn't really say he's a Nazir here. Not like Tanakama says, that Besham says he's a Nazir. You look at the first thing he said, Beisil says, no, he's not a Nazir. Rav Yehuda says, no, when Besham, according to Beisil, clearly he's not forbidden to eat anything. Because there's no such thing as a Nazir from figs. Nazir is only from grapes, grape products. Rav Yehuda says, no, when Beishamai said that it's usher, he meant to say, El Boma Hareya like a carbon, that the figs to me are usher. There's a netter, they're also to me like a carbon is also. That's pshat and review. We'll see different pshat in the Gemara. Says the Gemara, why do you say it's a Nazir? A Nazir is only forbidden from wine. How could you say that when he says, I want to be a Nazir from figs, that he's a Nazir? That's what Hashem said. The answer is Shammai Rav Meir. It was like Rav Meir and the machlokes we mentioned before. When a person says Harezu Tmuras Olu Shlamim, you look at what Rav Meir said. Whoever says two things. Number one, that a person doesn't say something for nothing. Since he said already Nazir, and then he said Mina Grogris, so you say, well, a Nazir doesn't go with the Grogris, therefore he said nothing. No. When a person says something, he meant for something to take effect. So when he said Nazir, he's a Nazir. Now he wants to change his mind. We don't look at that. We look at the first thing that he said. They sold Savli. A person is held to his last words too. So you look at the first thing he said in Nazir, and then he said Mina Grogris. Well, that doesn't go together. You can't be a Nazir from Grogris. Therefore, he's exempt totally. Behind that, it's like he said, I want to be a Nazir, but you know what? I only want to be a Nazir for eating figs. Well, there is no such thing. So it's like he's saying, I want to be a Nazir, and then I immediately ask, I want to find an excuse, a heter for his neder, for being in, because Nazir is a kind of a neder. So I find that it's like a neder, and then you immediately find the opening to cancel the neder, to annul it. So the Gemara Beishamai Nami neder peschim. Beishamai also holds that you can be shoel on a neder. So if you say that when he says Nazir and then he says Grogris, it's like he's changing his mind, saying I didn't really mean to a regular Nazir, so I meant a Naziris that forbids me from figs, which is not really a Naziris at all. So in that case, he's So in that case, what do you mean by saying that he's a Nazir? He doesn't really mean to be a Nazir at all. He's changing his mind. He's like saying, I have charatas. He's like looking for a Pesach. So that's what Beis Hillel says. So why can't Beis Shammai say the same thing? Beis Shammai nami neder pesfimo. El Beis Shammai so like Rav Meir. True. Beis Shammai was like Meir Damar. Ain't like we said before. A person said something. He meant to do something. He meant for something to take effect. When he said he's a Nazir, he meant to be a Nazir. Kindamar Nazir, Havli Nazir. Once he says I'm a Nazir, Harini Nazir, he's a Nazir. That's it. When he changed it, then he says, "Oh, I really meant to forbid myself only from figs." He's coming to be shoel on his neder. Well, that's sort of what Beis Hillel said, right? Beis Hillel said too. This is the neder. You're being a Nazir, but you want to change your mind and say, "I didn't really mean a Nazir. I meant to say from figs." So what's wrong? Why can't Beis Shammai say the same thing? You keep them already Nazir, happily Nazir. He's coming to be shoel on his neder. Beis Shammai according to their reasoning, the Omri ain't she'ela behekdish. You know what? That when it comes to being makdish an animal by mistake, even talk to the Dibra, you change your mind, you can't. When it comes to hegdish is so strong that it takes effect immediately. You can't change your mind. You can't say, I want to be shoel on that. I don't want this to be a chatas, or I don't want it to be an asham. I made a mistake. No. Beis Shammai holds ain't she'ela behekdish, not like Beis Hillel. Ain't she'ela behekdish. The kibbutz ain't she'ela behekdish. Ain't she'ela b'naziris. Once he says there's no she'ela, you can't be mater neder on being makdish something. The same thing applies for naziris. Why? Because the pasuk says kadoshia gadel pera. Naziris is also kind of a kedusha hekdish. It says kadoshia, he will be holy. When you accept naziris upon yourself, you raise yourself to a higher degree of holiness. And because it says kadoshia gadel pera. When it comes to naziris, it says kadoshia, he will be holy. So naziris is like hekdish, just like by hekdish, you can't change your mind. You can't be shown. You can't get a tarsadar on your hekdish. Can't be shown that you can't get a touchdown on Naziris either. So therefore, again, we're saying that Beis Shammai says, like Rav Meir, you look at the first thing that he said. Now you want to change your mind, you can't. Well, Beis Hillel holds like Reb Shimon, not like we said before. He holds like Reb Yossi. You look at his last words, but rather you look at the whole package. And Reb Shimon holds it's not, as we'll see in a minute. Reb Shimon says, "Potish lo nisnadev kederach hamisnadvim." When you make a donation or when you pledge yourself, and you make a pledge, you have to do it in the normal way. The normal way is, and Naziris is from grapes and grape products. What it say? I mean, grapes means grape products. And you want to make a neder, so make a neder. I'm not going to have apples. Apples are also to me, or figs are also to me. But this is not the normal way to speak. You don't say, I'm a Nazir from Grogus. That doesn't work. It goes like Rav Shimon, therefore it doesn't work. Whether this is a combination of it, maybe it is. It's sort of like Rabbi Yossi also, like he's not really reneging on what he said before, that they still hold Rabbi Yossi, because Beis says, you look at the last thing that he said too. And if you look at the whole package, you don't look, Beis Shammai says Hareini Nazir Nazir. Now you want to change your mind? Well, a neder you could change your mind because it's dharma. You can't change your mind on Naziris because Naziris is like Haggish. Whereas Beis Hillel says, no, you look at the whole package. He says Hareini Nazir, and then he says Melech Rokas. Well, that's not normal way to do it, and therefore it's much. So according to this, what we have so far, before we turn the page, a synopsis of the Mishnah. According to the Tanakama, Beis Shammai says, when he says Hareini Nazir, you're a Nazir, a regular Nazir from grapes. Beis Hillel says you're nothing. Rav Yehuda says, no, you're not, even according to Beis Shammai, you're not a Nazir, a regular Nazir with grapes. It's really kind of a neder. When you ask him, what are you talking about? There's no such thing as a Nazir. He goes, no, I meant to say, it says, El Ba'omer, Farshim say means as if he said, like carbon, meaning he's trying to explain his words. When you ask him, he says, I meant to say, when I say I'm a Nazir of Grogus, it's just like a way of saying, figs are also to me like a carbon. So I said it's like Naziris. Naziris means that you abstain from something, you put yourself at a higher degree, right? You make yourself holy. So you know what I meant to say also, that the figs to me are like a carbon. That's what I meant to say. That's Rav Yehuda's pshat in Beis Shammai. Now on Amid Beis, the Gemara is going to say our Mishnah Masis Lo Yaitana. The way our Mishnah reads, that according to the Tanakam, Beis Shammai says you're a Nazir. According to Rav Yehuda, according to Beis Hillel, you're nothing. According to Rav Yehuda's interpretation of Beis Shammai, you made yourself a neder, but not a Nazir. Masis Lo Yaitana does not go like the following Tana. The Tana that's from Nassan. The Tanya of Nassan Omer. Beis Shammai Omer Nadir bin Nazir. Beis Shammai says, you know what? In this case, you're both a Nazir and a neder, and you made a neder. What does that mean? You're a Nazir because you said Hareini Nazir. And when you said that Grogus and Bela, it's like you made yourself a neder. So according to Rav Nasser, Shammai says, you have a neder here on the figs, and you're a Naziris on the grapes. According to our Mishnah, the way we read it, Beis Hillel says you're nothing. You're totally exempt. Doesn't make any sense what you said. Beis Hillel says no, it is a neder. According to Nassan holds that Beis Hillel says no. It's Nizir, it's not, but it is a neder. You look at the last thing that he said, Minag Rogris and Minag Vela. I meant to make it like a carbon. Beis Hillel neder v'ein neder. Beshama, what's the svara? Beshama said with Rav Meir ukra biuda. Beshama was like Rav Meir. You look at the first thing that he said is a nazir, and he looked at what Rav Yehuda said that the fact that he said Minag Rogris and Minag Vela means to say I meant to make myself a neder on the figs. I meant to do both. He holds like Rav Meir. Look, first thing that he says already nazir. I'm a nazir, even though he maybe didn't mean it so much, but he said already nazir. So you go like Rav Meir. The first thing that he said was I'm nazir. He's a nazir. And you hold like Rabbi Yehuda, it said since he said Minag Rogris, he meant to make himself a neder. Beis Hillel Savri, like Rabbi Yossi, that what? You look at the last thing that he said. And the last thing that he said was what? Minag Rogris. What can you those shingas and naziris from Grogris, right? From figs. So he meant to say it's a neder. That's how one way to learn. That's how the first way that Rav Nassan appears to say different than our Mishnah. According to our Mishnah, Beis Hillel says you're nothing. Beis Shammai says you're a nazir. According to Rav Nassan, Beis Shammai says you're both, and according to Beis Hillel, you have a neder on the figs. You have a neder on the figs. But so another pshat in Rav Nassan, also different from our Mishnah, but not to as great an extent. Lishnachrina Amrila Rav Nassan, Amrila, they said another lashon. Rav Nassan, Beis Shammai Omer, no devayin nazir. Okay, Beis Shammai says, according to this pshat in Rav Nassan. Right, according to this pshat of Rav Nassan in Beis Shammai, you're only a neder. It's only a neder on the grogers, you're not a nazir. Well, that doesn't go like the Tanakam of our Mishnah, right? And what does it go like? It goes like Rabbi Yehuda. Rav Nassan Omer, Beis Shammai Omrim, you're a neder and a nazir. Beis Hillel Omrim, lo neder v'lo nazir. Okay, according to this Lishna Achrin, according to the second lashon, Beis Hillel in Rav Nassan is like Beis Hillel in our Mishnah, that you're nothing, you're totally exempt. You said you're a nazir from figs. Well, that doesn't make sense. You look at the whole package. He said, I'm a nazir from figs. No such thing as nazir from figs. You didn't make a neder. You said you're a nazir. Well, that's all meaningless. You're exempt. Beis Shammai, Rabbi Yehuda. Beis Shammai, in this second interpretation of Nassan Lishnachrina, he goes like Rabbi Yehuda, that what are you? It's a neder. That's what Rabbi Yehuda said in our Mishnah. That when he at the end of the Mishnah said, Rabbi Yehuda says, Beis Shammai didn't really mean to say you're a nazir. He meant to say that figs are also to you like a carbon, because he said Minag Rogris. And what did you mean to say? You meant to say, oh, I know it's not a real nazir. I meant to say that figs are also to me, just like grapes are also to a nazir. Figs are also to me. I'm making a neder, a kind of a carbon. So Rav Nassan Beis Shammai Yomim Nadav and Nazir Beis Hillel Lo Nadav Lo Nazir Beis Shammai Rabbi Yehuda Beis Hillel Rav Shimon, and Beis Hillel goes like Rav Shimon. Which Rav Shimon, as we referred to before, that Shalom is son of Kederach Masan, just like we saw in the Mishnah. According to the second lashon in Rav Nassan, Beis Shammai is different than our Mishnah, because our Mishnah said Beis Shammai says you're a nazir, but Rav Nassan holds like Rabbi Yehuda's pshat in Beis Shammai that you're a neder, not a nazir. And Beis Hillel says you're nothing. It's not the way you normally speak. So that's the first pshat. That's what Rav Nassan says. That's what we started off on the base here. Rav Beis Shammai says it's a neder and a nazir. The first part of what you said is Hareni nazir, you're a nazir. You look at the first words that he said, and then when he said Nagrogris, he meant to say figs are also to me like a carbon. That's Rav Nassan in Beis Shammai, and according to Rav Nassan in Beis Hillel, the first opinion is of Rav Nassan is that in the first opinion of Nassan in Beis Hillel is that it's at least a neder, which is not what our Mishnah said at all, and not what Rabbi Yehuda said. The second pshat, Lishnachrina, of Rav Nassan is that Beis Shammai says you're another, but it's a neder but not a nazir. So that's like Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah. Beis Hillel says you're nothing like Beis Hillel in our Mishnah.
Question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What is the procedure here for a nazir? Does it have to be before Bezdin? Does it have to be before Eidin?
No. He just has to accept it upon himself.
Because they're talking here about the Petach business.
Yeah.
That it's
it's like a Pesach, right.
Like it's an immediate Petach.
Right. He's trying Pesach, right. I think you have to understand when it comes to Ataras Nadarim, Pesach, it's really just the Bezdin is there to confirm that he really regrets it, or that he made a mistake. It's not a procedure like a get or a kedushin that you have to have 2 Adam and it's a chalos and it's got to take effect like that. A nazir could be just by saying a nazir. I'm a nazir, even if he said it to himself. Right, that's it. Yeah, that's how I understand it. All right, says the Mishnah, says the Gemara. Tanan. We're going to look at another Mishnah. Tanan also we learn in Menachos. Let's understand something. What is a Menachos? What is a mincha? Korban mincha is a flour offering, right? Most karbanos mincha are made from wheat flour, right? Made from wheat. There are 2 that are made from barley. What is that? Mincha sota and the omer, right? Omer is a korban sibur, of course. It's brought on the 2nd day of Pesach. And a sota, Rahman al-Islam, is when they have to bring one because she was a woman who was suspected. So those are the only 2 that are barley. Everything else is wheat, and there are no other kinds of mincha. You don't bring a mincha from spelt or rye or oats or rice or anything else. Okay. So the Mishnah says in Menachos like this: Homer Harei mincha. Let's first say I want to bring a mincha. Now, what do you mean Harei mincha? That can't be a sota because that's a chiyuv. Same thing with Omer, even though it's a korban sibur, but it's a chiyuv. It's an obligation. Harei means I'd like to make a donation. I can't afford an animal. I can't even afford birds. Flour I can offer. I can afford that. So I like to make a modest donation, right? Right? Can't afford as much as the rich people are bringing an animal or birds, but I like to bring a flour offering. So he says, now a flour offering, when it's a donation, has to be wheat, right? Because there is no barley. Barley is only a sota or a korban omer, which are obligations. And there are no other species of flour offerings. So when he said like a mincha, and then he says I'm going to bring a mincha from barley. Doesn't make sense, right? Doesn't make sense. That sounds very much like I want to be a nazir from figs, right? So mincha the Mishnah over there says, you know what? Even though you said mincha, I'm going to bring a mincha, a flour offering from barley, you have to bring it from wheat, and you do bring it. You bring it from wheat because you accepted to bring a korban mincha. You made a mistake, or you thought you could bring barley. Well, bring the right kind. There is no such thing as a minchas nedava, from barley. Let's say he said kemach. I want to bring it from coarse flour. No, you got to bring fine flour because again, a korban mincha has to be bought from fine flour. And when you bring a korban mincha nedava, you have to add to it oil and spices. Let's say he says shelo b'shem lavan. I don't want to bring any. I want to bring a mincha, but I don't want to bother with the oil and the spices. You got to bring it the right way. There is no such thing. You can't make up your own kind of a mincha. The Torah specifies exactly how a mincha should be brought. It's got to be brought from fine wheat flour, and you have to add on and mix it with oil and spices. And it has to be a certain amount, a certain measure, an isaron, right? Isaron, right? Omer Asira Saifa, who writes this week's parsha. So chatzi isar. Let's say I want to bring a half a measure. I don't want to bring a whole measure. No, you got to bring you got to bring a full measure. Isar namach. Let's say I want to bring it from a measure and a half. You got to bring 2. Right? It's got to be 2 because you can't bring a half, and you gave 1 1/2, so you got to bring 2. Reb Shimon Poter. Reb Shimon says you don't bring anything because you either bring it the right way, you pledge the right way, or there's no obligation at all. Shimon Poter Shlo Nesadav Kedech Zatim. This is the Reb Shimon that we referred to twice on Amar Aleph. When Reb Shimon said, "You're Poter, you're exempt." Shlo is not you didn't donate the way you're supposed to donate. You just made up some story over there. You want to bring it from barley, you bring a half a measure. You want to bring without oil. Why? No, you without oil and spices. There's no such thing. You don't bring it at all. Now, looking at the Tanakama said, no, even though you said it the wrong way, you want to bring it from barley, you want to bring a half a measure, you bring it the right way. Who is the author of that? Who is that Tanakama? Man Tana. Who is the author? Who is the Tana who said, when I said I want to pledge, I'd like to take it upon myself to bring a korban mincha from barley, maybe menachitim. Who's that? Who is that? Well, doesn't that fit in right with our Mishnah? I want to be a nazir from figs, and he says that's a nazir. Amar Chizkiya machlok shetzaka machlokas like Bisham Mesu, or Bisham goes like a Bishimol. It goes like Bishamai. Lavam Basham didn't Basham say in our Mishnah. When you say I'm a nazir from figs or from pressed figs, have a nazir, you look at the first thing that he said, Ochanami. Here also, even though he said from barley, maybe menachitim, because he said mincha. As soon as you say mincha, there's only one kind of mincha that you can donate. You're not a mincha schote, you're not a sinner that comes without the spices, and you're not a sota here, and it's not a carbon omer. And therefore, you said Arei mincha, you got to bring it the right way. Ki amar min asora, maybe menachitim. That goes like Rav Shimon, like Beis Shammai rather. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. It can go like everybody. You know why? The first part of the Mishnah. Sure. Rav Shimon says, but Rav Yochanan says, no, that the first part of the Mishnah says that when you said I bring a mincha from sorry, you still bring it from mincha. It goes like everybody. Why? But Omer, it's when he explains himself. He says, it's speaking about where does he have to bring the carbon mincha? When they say, what are you talking about? A mincha from barley? Oh, I didn't know that's not how you do it. I know, because there are kinds of minchas that do have barley, like a sota or an omer. Omer, when he explains himself, and he says, had I known that you don't make an edit this way, but you do it this way, I would have done that. In other words, I meant to do it the right way. I just was confused, because I know that there are some barley. I remember I learned in once the chumash, we had in the chumash, right? We learned the parsha sota, you bring it from barley. So I know there's a barley mincha. I didn't make up something that totally doesn't make any sense. So he says, had I known that, I would have done it. So Rabbi Yochanan said it could even go like Beis Hillel, first part of the Mishnah. Rabbi Shimon says, now we said in our Mishnah that Beis Hillel goes like Beis Shammai, but that's Rabbi Yochanan's shita. Rabbi Yochanan says that the first part of that Mishnah in Menachos can go even like Beis Hillel. Amar Chizkiya. Now we get into the details. So far it seems right. The first part of the Mishnah seems to go like Beis Shammai. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Even Beis Hillel be more speaking about where he explains himself. He says I made a mistake. I would have had I known that you could only make a donation, a flour donation from wheat. I would have said wheat. Amar Chizkiya lo shalom shalom. So that's only if he said I'm bringing a mincha from Sorim, because Sorim there is a kind of mincha of Sorim, like we said, sota or omer. Aval omer menadash. Let's say he says I want to carve mincha from lentils. There is no such beast. There's no such thing. There's such thing as a carbon mincha from. Just like you can't bring a carbon with a deer, even a kosher animal. It's got to be a short kesser ways. No such thing as a mincha from lentils. There's no such thing. Even if you grind them up and make them into fine flour and you add oil and incense and everything, it's not going to help. So Chizkiya says, "Lo shalom shalom and asam avalom and adoshim." He says from lentils. Lo ma'asim lo klum. He's totally good. It doesn't bring anything, right? Okay, that's what Chizkiya says. Does that really make sense though? It says the Gemara, Michti Chizkiya k'ma'amakom masis k'v'shamay. What do you mean? Chizkiya said that this Mishnah that said when I say I'm going to bring a flour offering from barley, why is it okay? It goes like Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai said in a Mishnah, I'm going to be a nazir from figs. You're a nazir anyway. Okay. So what's the difference if I said I want to bring a flour offering from barley or lentils? What's the difference if I said lentils or figs or anything else? You look at the first thing that he said. Who's that Mishnah? Beis Shammai. When you compare, A is to B as C is to D, lentils for a mincha is like figs for a nazir. It's the same thing. Figs have no business with a nazir, and lentils have no business with a mincha. So if you say when I'm a nazir from figs, I'm a nazir, you really are a nazir according to Beis Shammai. So when you say I want to bring a mincha from a dashim, you should also have to bring a regular mincha. It's like a nazir dam. Become a Beis Shammai, have a nazir. Beis Shammai says in our Mishnah, you are a nazir. Okay, so that's a good kasha on Chizkiya. How could Chizkiya say now that when the Mishnah said in Menachos that when I want to bring a carbon mincha from barley, it is a carbon, you got to bring it from wheat, but only if I said barley. If I said lentils or apples or peas or something else, no. Why? What's the difference? You still said I want a carbon mincha, just like when I said I want to be a nazir. Even if you said figs, you're still a nazir. So when I say I want a carbon mincha, as soon as I had mincha, I got to bring from wheat, no matter what species I mentioned that the carbon should come from. Chizkiya changed his mind. He retracted. What do you mean he retracted? When he said over here, not that the Mishnah doesn't go like Beis Shammai. Chizkiya said that it goes like Beis Shammai, but he changed his pshat in Beis Shammai. Meaning what? Look at in the Rashi, even with Nizchos or Ivan on the left side. right? About almost halfway down the page. Right? Not because of that. The Savlik Rav Nasi, like Rav Nasi, Kalishna Basra, this Beshami did not obey a Nazir. The reason he said it goes up Geshamai is not because he held that Beshamai said that when you say Areni Nazir, Minagrogris, you're really a Nazir, but rather he held like the second Lashon in Rav Nasan. What was the second Lashon of Rav Nasan? 4 lines from the top of this page of the Gemara. Rav Nasan Beshami not obey Nazir. When he said Areni Nazir, Minagrogris, what are you? You're forbidden to eat grogris, you're forbidden to eat figs. You're not really a Nazir. That's what he holds like back in Rashi. This Beshami did not obey Nazir. It's as if I said I really wanted to be forbidden to eat figs. I'm taking a vow not to eat figs. So those you could make an edit. In other words, when a person says I'm a Nazir from figs, well, that doesn't make any sense. But that I'm forbidden to eat figs, yeah, I meant to make an edit from figs. You can make an edit from figs. Right. It's like another explanation. Right, it's sort of like that, like when he said that, but it's not really a kino. He said this is what I meant to forbid myself. It's a netter. In other words, the comparison is not that lentils is to a carbon mincha as figs are to a nazir. No, because Chizkiah doesn't hold that Beishamai really says you're a nazir. That's what our Mishnah said, that you're a nazir. In the first shot of Rav Nosson said that you're a nazir and an edit. The second shot of Rav Nosson was like Rav Yehuda in our Mishnah, that when Beishamai says it's forbidden, you're not a nazir. You just can't eat figs. You meant to say that figs are also to me like a neder. So when you say figs are, figs can be a neder. Figs make sense. Figs can't be a nazir, but figs could be a neder. Oh, so you know what? Figs could be a neder. Figs could be a neder. In the same way, barley can be a mincha, because there's a kind of mincha made from barley, like sota or omer. So that's what he means to say. Again, back in our Gemara now. Chizkiah said, he said, look at the answer. The answer is Hadabe Chizkiah. Chizkiah retracted. He didn't really say that our Mishnah goes like Beishamai in the sense that just like Beishamai said, you're a Nazir over there when you say you're a Nazir. It's not that you're a Nazir, but it's a neder, right? Because you could, when you say I already Nazir my grogris, again, you meant to say a neder on the grogris. Well, the same thing over here. When I went to say I want to carbon mincha from barley, there is a kind of a barley. Barley is a kind of a mincha, so I meant to do that. Okay, so it makes sense, at least you're in the parsha, so to speak, and therefore, since when you said I'm harei alai mincha from barley, so at least it's a mincha, because there is a kind of a mincha like barley, so it's not a total crazy thing. I'm not bringing a mincha from apples or from peas or something. There is a kind of mincha there, therefore it takes effect, and you bring a regular carbon mincha from wheat. Says my Harabe, why did he retract? Amarava Maslisan Kashi said the mission was difficult to him. If he really held like that Beishamai, that when you say Areni Nazir min hagrogris, you're a Nazir. So when it comes to the carbon mincha, why did it say if I'm bringing a mincha from barley? Say I'm bringing a mincha from lentils or from peas or from something else. Listening in Adashim, Taka say from lentils. Since you didn't say that, you didn't go that far out. You said I want to bring a mincha from something. From barley, you didn't say from lentils or peas or lettuce or something else. You didn't say something that's crazy like figs compared to a nazir. You said from something which makes sense. Listen, Elasavar Chizkiah Kikam Beishamai Hasam Rabbi Yehuda. When Beishamai said on an aleph that you hareni nazir is a neder. Rabbi Yochanan Amar. Rabbi Yochanan says, what did Rabbi Yochanan say in explaining the Mishnah in Mincha? Remember, Beishamai, Chizkiah still said it. Mishnah goes like Beishamai. Just like Beishamai says that when I said Areni Nazir Menasarim, it's at least a neder on the Menagrogris. Areni Nazir Menagrogris. It's at least a neder on the Grogris because you could make a neder there. Same way, when I said Areni Mincha Menasarim, it is a carbon mincha because there is such a thing as a mincha there. Rabbi Yochanan says, Afilu Minadashim. Rabbi Yochanan says, wait a minute. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, even for Nadashim, it's also considered over here a good mincha. You bring it even way. Remember, Rabbi Yochanan said in the explanation, Rabbi Yochanan before halfway down on the page of the Gemara, but Omer had I known, when I said Arei Alai mincha min saurim. Everybody, even Beisol says it's a carbon mincha. Why? Because I just made a slight mistake. Had I known that you don't do this, I would have done it the right way. So what he said, Rabbi Yochanan says, afilu min adoshim. Rabbi Yochanan says you can even make it from lentils, but nobody makes a mistake there. There's no such thing as I made a mistake. I wanted to bring a carbon mincha from lentils. There's no such mincha. Nobody would make a mistake like that. So what do you mean, Rabbi Yochanan says afilu min adoshim? For Rabbi Yochanan the Omer ba'Omer Eli say, had I known, had I known this, I thought you could bring a mincha because I know there is a mincha from barley. I thought I could bring one too. Had I known that mincha from barley is only on a sota and on Omer, I would have done it the right way. I would have said from wheat. So how could you say now that Rabbi Yochanan says afilu min adoshim? The answer is Rabbi Yochanan didn't really mean to say that when you say rally mincha adoshim, you're it's carbon mincha. L'dvarei the Chizkiya to come. Rabbi Yochanan was just answering Chizkiya. At my time, why did you retract your opinion and you say that our Mishnah goes like what? You said that our Mishnah goes like Beishamai, who says when it's Hareni Nazir and I Grogris, you're a Nazir, but it can't be that way. Why did you retract? Mishum Delok Tanim Dashim. If that would be the case, the Mishnah should in Menachos should have said, I'm bringing a mincha from a dashim, because a dashim to a mincha is like grogris to a nazir. And if you say that you are a nazir in that case, it should be a mincha here too when you say a dashim too. But it didn't say a dashim. It said only barley. That's your reason why you retracted. He's talking to Rabbi Yochanan is talking to Chizkiya. He's saying, how do you know that that's why you retracted? Maybe when he says over here in the carbon mincha, when he say Arealai mincha min asorim, it's a mincha, but he didn't say adashim. You know why? Lomi boy kamar. Maybe it's certainly lomi boy. Certainly, there's no question. All kiyamar adashim the ma'isi mincha. When he said I'm bringing a mincha from adashim, you certainly bring a mincha. Ma'al yasi, bring a proper mincha, a good mincha from wheat. Why? Diklanim the header with the karabay, because it could be he changed his mind. When he said Arealai mincha, then he said min adashim. No, you got to bring a regular mincha. When you said min mincha, you look at the first thing that he said. He said min mincha, you got to bring it. Now you're changing your mind. You look at the first thing that you said. Ela filu kiyamar asara. That's the gear set. Ela filu kiyamar asara. Even when he said mincha asara, you might think vadai that he's vadai sorim the hochikamar ikachika mincha saomer o mincha sota tikdosh. Maybe meant to say this. I want to bring a mincha. I know there's a kind of a mincha which can be brought from barley. Wheat's more expensive than barley. I want to bring a carbon mincha from barley because I know there are such things. I know I learned by Sota and by Omer there is such things. So I want to bring that too. This is what he means to say. If this can be kaddish, if I can bring a mincha from, I can donate a mincha from barley. Just like you, mincha Omer, mincha Sota, teaches not to eat low, but if I can't low, it shouldn't be a carbon mincha at all. Kamash one no, the ma'is minachitim. In other words, Rabbi Yochanan is turning to Chizkiya and saying, why did you change your mind and say that Beishamai is only talking about becoming a neder and not becoming a nazir? Why? Because in the case of carbon mincha, why did it say only minasorim, not from adashim? Adashim is to mincha as grogris is to nazir. And you changed my mind, say, no. Since he didn't say min adashim, he only said from barley. Only when there's a slight mistake does it work, because there is a kind of a mincha that comes from barley in the same way that you could make a neder on grogris, not a nazir, but you could be it's your answer as a neder. Well, how do you know when he says carbon mincha? It only works. When is it a carbon mincha and you bring for kikna? Only when it said min asarim, not min adashim. No. Maybe when you said adashim, for sure it's a carbon mincha. You got to bring a proper one because you were changing your mind. And you can't change your mind. But when he said, I'm going to bring it from barley, then maybe this is what he's trying to say. I know there's a kosher kind of a barley mincha. Can I donate one like that too? If I can, then I want to do it. If I can't, then I don't want to do anything at all. No, that's not the pshat. Maybe Elo to Kamashma, no, you know that that's not the pshat in what he said. And when he said a relay mincha, minasorim, he still has to bring from chitim also. That's right. So in other words, when Rabbi Yochanan says that afilu min adashim, he doesn't really say min adashim is a good carbon mincha. He's saying it's only when you made something a mistake, like he said. Can you even go like everybody? Meaning, in the Mishnah Menachos, we come out that Chizkiya says it goes like Beishamai. Who says what? That when I say Hareni Nazir, I grogris, it's a neder on the grogris. The same thing over here. When I make a neder and I say I'm going to donate a carbon mincha from Saorim, it's only a slight mistake, and it is a proper korban mincha. Rabbi Yochanan says no, it can go like everybody because in a slight mistake, you just a slight mistake. But everybody agrees that when you said menadashim, it's not really a korban mincha at all. But Rabbi Yochanan was telling Chizkiah, what's your reasoning why you retracted? Why? Because it didn't say menadashim. Maybe menadashim is understood anyway. If you say Arei mincha menadashim, you're changing your mind. You can't change your mind, so you got to become mincha. But when you said Arei mincha mina saorim, you're not changing your mind at all. You're not changing your mind. Everybody knows you can't bring a mincha from adashim. So when you say Arei mincha from adashim, you meant to bring a mincha. Now you're changing your mind. You can't change your mind. But when you say Arei mina saorim, where you're not changing your mind. I just thought I know there is a kind of a mincha saorim, so I thought I could donate one too. If I can't, I don't want to donate at all. No, we don't say that. Maybe that was this whole argument is an argument that Rabbi Yochanan is telling Chizkiah, but everybody agrees that when you say Harei Elai Mincha and Adashim, that he says according to your reasoning, maybe that's the pshat, maybe that's the pshat, but everybody really holds that when you say Harei Elai Mincha and Adashim, that it's nothing at all. All right, we'll pick from the Mishnah tomorrow, Mr. Shem. Have a good day.
Isn't the Dea is